In this video, we're going to have a look at the 2023 Chrysler Pacifica Limited all-wheel drive. It's a $60,000 minivan. We're going to have a look at the front end design, the side, the rear, the interior, and then we're going to take this for a drive. Here it is, guys, the $60,000 minivan that is the Chrysler Pacifica 2023 model year. This is the limited version, all-wheel drive, and the S package, meaning that everything that you see around the windows, the side mirrors, and everything else that's usually chrome is now blacked out. And that is definitely one package that I would get for my Pacifica. Then you have the 20-inch wheels on a minivan, blacked out, looking very sporty. So what we're gonna do in this video is, of course, have a look at this design. But before we do that, let's pop the hood and let me show you what's powering this very luxurious minivan. Under the hood, we do have a 3.6 liter V6 putting out 287 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. This, as we talked about, is the all-wheel drive version. It's connected to a 9-speed automatic transmission. 0 to 60 in about 7.3 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 17 city. Ouch. In 25 highway, and this one, as tested, is just below $60,000, but the base price for this is around $40,000. So coming into the design of this Chrysler Pacifica, I do think this is one of the best looking minivans out there today. We have a clear Chrysler definition of the front end. You can, even though the traditional layout of the headlights, the grille, the bumper, the lower section is all where you think it's supposed to be, it still has a very clear identity or DNA of Chrysler. I do love these daytime run lights because, as you can see, we do have a nice LED light here that is a little bit thicker in this area, then goes into thinner at the bottom and thinner at the top as well. Full LED headlights. You do have still the indicator being just a normal light bulb. And as we talked about in the beginning, this being the S package, you can see that everything is blacked out instead of having chrome. So everything down here at the bottom, all gloss black. You also have gloss black here in the middle, and this is also open. You have the radar integration right there. The top part is also open. You have the front mounted camera integrated right below the Chrysler logo, and this logo itself in this black layout, I think it looks really cool, specifically with this ruby red. The overall styling, the line flow that we have, I think it's really nice because we have this line cutting in through the A-pillar, going through this very pretty short hood in this case. You also have two key lines right here in the middle section, creating some more stylistic features for the Chrysler Pacifica. I think this, in combination with the Kia Carnival, I think those two are the best looking minivans on sale today. Front end looks great. It does have these minivans proportions, but when you drive it, it really doesn't feel that much like a minivan. So coming around to the side view of this Pacifica, and as we talked about earlier before as well, this having the S package, you do have the 20-inch black wheels. So these wheels and tire setup are 245 millimeter wide tires with the gorgeous 20-inch wheels going around. It's not really entirely black. This looks more like charcoal, and I do like the finish and design of this wheel with the Pirelli tires. It looks nice, but I'm not sure how necessary it is to have 20-inch wheels on a minivan. Overall, the line flow of the side view, you can clearly see that it does have these minivan proportions with the layout that we have here, but we still have some styling in this car. So we have this nice line cutting at the very bottom, and then we have this beautiful shoulder line cutting right here and then dipping down right here over the rear axle. Nicely done, a nice little feature. I do wish that this line though had some sort of connection to the rear end. It kind of does with this line sweeping down here, creating this S curve, but overall a very, very nice design for a minivan. I think this is, as I said, one of the best looking minivans out there. We also have a line in the front end. You can see the chamfer coming up from underneath the headlights right here, and then cutting in and creating this shoulder line that goes up top of the car. And in addition to that, with the S package, everything being blacked out, you have the black trim going around the windows, and you also have this gloss black side mirrors with a 360 camera, part of that mounted right here, and the LED indicator integrated in the side mirror. Coming around to the rear end, and I think this organic feel still continues back here in the rear. The thing about this that makes this a minivan is just how low the bumper sits. Compare this to an SUV, for example. You have the rear end sitting a lot higher than what it does right here. You have this swooping line underneath the taillight going into the side, into this roof spoiler with the integrated brake light up here. Everything being body colored, even the door handles on the side with the S package. And again, you have the same type of dynamic feel in these very juicy taillights, thick in the end parts, going into thinner piece up here. And we have the trend of the decade, which is a full light bar being integrated in the rear end of the Pacifica. Further down, we don't have any visible exhaust pipes, but we do have the Pacifica S badge on the left side, and we have the limited all-wheel drive on the right side. So now open the trunk up here. Everything is power assisted with this package, and this is of course a $60,000 minivan. So back here you can fold everything flat, so you have a lot of storage space back here in the rear end, and you can see that the rear seats are now folded. We can fold them back up using this power button right here on the side. You can see they raise very slowly, but I think the engineering in the back part, by having everything hidden in the floor itself, it's a pretty genius solution from Chrysler, and I guess that's part of the package or the cost of $60,000 by having everything here power assisted, as you can see. Now, once the seats are open, you have this very deep storage compartment back here. It goes on, feels like it goes almost down to the floorboard of the chassis. That's how deep this is. And then if you want to fold them back down, you just use the same button to fold them back down. It's going to take a while, and I think you've seen the process now as they go up. Everything being power assisted, you do have a power assisted tailgate as well. So let's just close that down beautifully like that. So with that said, we talked about the exterior design of the 2023 Pacifica. Let's jump in and have a look at what's going on in the interior. Jumping into the interior of the 2023 Chrysler Pacifica Limited, and let's fire this up. We do have the start button down here. We have a 10.1-inch infotainment screen, analog cluster for the tachometer and the speedometer, with the rather, I think that's a 5-inch or something like that screen right there in the middle. Nice housing for it. It's very organic in the interior here as well. The exterior design coming back to this interior, I think it's a nice touch. So looking at the integration here with the gloss black around the infotainment screen, what I love about this is that you do have both the controls for the climate control settings. If you want to, you can have them be physical down here, or you can use the controls up here in the software itself. We also have cooled seats or ventilated seats in this case. Fantastic, exactly as you should for $60,000. You can go in and check the navigation. I like that it takes up the entire 10 inches of the screen. You have your phone connections, you have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto being wireless. You also have the vehicle settings down here, and you have a bunch of cameras in this car. So let's check fam view. So this is where you can check on the kids, what they're doing back there. So you can see the entire interior with a very fisheye lens. So you can see the camera being mounted right there. Super convenient. Then you have the surround camera, the 360 camera right here. You can choose whatever camera you want to view at, and I think the resolution is decent, not the best resolution, but you're still gonna see when there is a Cadillac Escalade behind you, so you don't reverse into it. Further down here, this is where all the analog buttons comes in. You have the gear selector here, so putting it in reverse is gonna pop up the backup camera once again. Put it back into park. You have the parking brake here, volume knob for the radio. You have all these assist buttons for the parking assist and the lane control, lane departure controls, and the auto shut off for the engine. Let's turn that off. Traction control on and off. You can turn the entire screen off and just have the clock up there if you want to. Hazards, mute button down here. This is what I love about Chrysler products even in 2023. It might not look as fancy as having a bunch of digital stuff up here like we do in this case as well. I much rather have it be like this, where you have all the controls for the vents and the climate control settings right here integrated physically. Now, one interesting detail here is this is a 2023 model of a minivan, but you still have a CD player. Have some nostalgic feeling in there, and you also have 2 USBs. You have a total of 12 USB ports in this van. You have a normal USB here and a USB-C, but that's not all when it comes to USBs in the front end. So push this slider open, you have the wireless charging, you have 4 more USB connections here, ports, and you have the aux port there as well. Slide back, there's a gloss black cover. This is what the key looks like, and this being the Limited, you have a bunch of options here. Unlock and lock, you have the open the trunk, you have the remote start and sliding the door. So if we click this 2 times, have a look at that. How fancy is that thing? And then just hit it 2 times again and it's gonna close back up, and you can do the same for the other side as well. Pretty nice looking key for a minivan, to be honest. It has a nice quality feel to it. You have 2 cup holders right here, and you have more storage behind this area, and guess what, you have 2 more USB slots integrated under this slider. Now, looking at the armrests here, these are 2 captain's chairs, or I don't know if you can call these captain's chairs, but you do have the armrests here. I do think this armrest sits a little bit too tight or too close to the driver. I would much rather have something that sticks out here in the middle, but then that would cover up this storage compartment in the middle, so I guess you have to live with that. It's not too bad. The seats look fine. They're not very sporty, but you wouldn't expect that in a minivan. I do like that we have a specific seat for the S trim level with this S integrated in the seat itself. You can see the perforation in it, this being a ventilated seat, and you have the white piping and the white stitching on it as well. Overall, a pretty nice looking seat. Up top, we do have a huge sunroof. So if you just open this up, you can open it all the way back to the 2nd row passengers. And it's a nice feature to have. You can also open up the window should you want to do that. But for now, I'm going to keep this closed. You also have the buttons right here like you have on the key fob. So you can open and slide open the doors with these buttons right here. You can do both, or you can open up the tailgate with this button, and you also have a storage for your sunshades. Looking at this steering wheel, a pretty basic Chrysler steering wheel, but just look at how fat this is. This is a lot fatter than I would expect to have in a minivan. And honestly, driving this, as we're going to do in just a minute, it doesn't really feel like a minivan. It feels more like a station wagon or something like that. The handling is pretty good. The comfort is fantastic. Again, as it should be for $60,000. But the steering wheel itself, the design is nice. We do have a couple of chamfers going around this area. One nice line in the middle, the Chrysler logo right here. Controls for the gauge cluster setting up here on the left side. So you have all the settings. You can customize this as you like. And here you can also see the average MPG up here, 21.1. That is not great for a minivan. You also have the voice command buttons here on the left side. On the right side, you have the controls for the cruise control settings. Normal, regular stock for the windshield wipers on the right side, and you have the indicator stock on the left side. Further down, you have the controls for the light setting. With that said, we talked about the interior in the front end. Let's jump into the back seats and see how much room I have there. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have plenty of room, this being a minivan. Now, adding to this luxurious feel of the Pacifica, these doors, they open pretty slowly, by the way. But jumping in here behind my own driving position, you can see that we do have captain's chairs right here in the back as well, with armrest on both sides. The seats are pretty comfortable. You have USB slots here, HDMI, and if we fold this thing up, have a look at that. We have a fancy screen here. So this is part of the, I think it's about $3,200 option to have the screens in here, which means you also have a vacuum integrated in the back, which I think is a fantastic idea. You also have more USB slots. So 12, I think it's 12. There might actually be more than 12 USB slots in this minivan, but plenty of space back there. I showed you what it looks like when the seats are folded up, and now they're folded down. You have a lot of room in the back. You can also fold down this seat that I'm sitting in and have it be completely flat here in the second row. So you have remote controls for both of these screens. And folding this back down, it creates a very nice and clean looking rear end of the seats. I don't have any issues with leg room, and headroom, as you can see, is pretty substantial as well. Another fancy detail is that you have the climate control settings up here for the second row, so you can choose whatever climate you want here. 3-zone climate control in this minivan. And here again, you can see this fisheye lens that gives you the fam cam up front. Alright guys, let's take the 2023 Chrysler Pacifica Limited for a drive. It's been a while since I last drove a minivan, but this one, as I said, doesn't really feel like a minivan to me. It's very comfortable, very luxurious for a Chrysler minivan. But again, we come back to the price of $60,000. It's not a cheap minivan by any means, but you also get, I mean, this is loaded, so you get a lot of things or luxuries that you don't necessarily need in this car. For example, this automatic sliding doors. You have this big sunroof as well. It makes for a nicer car, obviously, but you can also bring the price down pretty much to, if you want the base model, to $40,000. It goes pretty well. A V6 under the hood, 3.6 liter V6, 287 horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 7.3 seconds. And it handles, as I said, it handles pretty well. I'm not gonna say it's fun to drive. I mean, it's pretty fun to drive, even though it is a minivan. The big downside, though, by having this 3.6 liter V6 is, I'm sure you know what that is. That's gonna come down to the fuel economy. 17 city, and you get, realistically, you get about 23, 24 on the highway. And I think that is a big no-no for a large portion of the demographic that is looking into buying this Pacifica. Is definitely going to be the fuel economy that they don't have. They do have a hybrid for this, but this with the V6, it goes nice, handles well, it sounds good, but the fuel economy is definitely going to be a big letdown. Just cruising around like this, it is extremely comfortable, even with the 20-inch wheels. I'm glad that they offer 20-inch wheels. I'm not sure how many is going to take Chrysler up on that offer to put 20s on this car. But if you're worried that it's going to ruin the ride and the comfort, you don't have to worry about that at all, because it is still very, very comfortable in here. I do like that Chrysler decided to keep the old traditional layout of the gauge cluster. This is probably going away for the next, would be my guess, not having it be analog like we have right here. It just looks nice. I also like the design of the graphics as well, because they have this dip to it, where it feels like the tachometer and the speedometer has a little bit of like carved out portion, almost like a ball was pressed into the gauge cluster to create the tachometer and the speedometer. Nice touch. Still have the blue ambient lighting around the speedometer and tachometer. Overall, pretty decent looking interior. Personally, if I had a big family of 4 kids or something like that, I still don't think I would buy a minivan, because it's very, very hard to make a minivan look good. Chrysler did a good job with this one. As a designer, the hard thing is to make the proportions look right, because you have this relatively small wheel to a big volume on top of it, and it's kind of hard to make that work from a line flow perspective, or just proportion-wise. It kind of looks a little top-heavy, but I do think, again, Chrysler managed to bring the design down, or the proportions down, even in this minivan. But if it was me, for 60 grand, there are so many other alternatives that I would choose. But I would, first of all, I'm not in the market for a minivan, but I would definitely probably go with a 7-seat SUV. But if you're into all practicality, that's where minivans shine, because of the low entry point. You don't have to climb up a ladder to jump into your car. You have the big sliding doors on both sides, making it very easy to load and unload. Everything stows down into the floor, so you have this huge cargo van if you want to. Engineering for that, for the interior in this car, is very, very cool to see that they were able to make the entire floor flat in the back. So let's slow it down here a little bit, and let's step on it. Revs up to about 6,000 RPM, and again, it sounds good. It's pretty hard to make a V6 sound bad, and even though it is a minivan, you can still have some cool noises coming out of it. Overall, if you want a minivan and don't want to, go cheap on the luxuries, this is probably the minivan for you. I do like the Kia Carnival as well. The design looks tight. They just refreshed it. The new one looks even tighter than before and connects it to the rest of the lineup of Kia. And this design is starting to age, specifically with the soft and the curvature feel that we have here. It feels a little, it's starting to feel a little dated. I'm sure they're gonna update this pretty soon as well. But overall, it's a great minivan. But we do have two cons, and one is the price for all this luxury. 60K is a lot of money for a minivan. And secondly, the fuel economy at 17 city, 25 highway is also a letdown. With that said, it's probably one of the most comfortable minivans I've ever been in. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.